The colony of Haven stood quiet under a sky filled with dust and fading sunlight. Small houses made of stone and metal were spread across the valley, and fields of grain bent in the evening wind. Life in Haven was never easy, but people worked hard and stood together. On this day, everything changed. A shadow passed over the colony as a ship unlike any the settlers had ever seen appeared in the sky. It was not like the trading ships that sometimes came from Earth. It was massive, built in long silver lines, with glowing blue engines that hummed like thunder. The ship slowed as it reached the valley, casting a wide shadow across the homes and farms. Children pointed and ran, calling for their parents. Workers in the fields froze, staring upward. Within moments, the entire colony gathered near the central square. Fear was clear in their eyes. Few had seen an alien ship before, and none this large. Arun, a young engineer, stood among them. He had worked for years repairing machines that kept the colony alive. He was not a soldier, not a leader, but when he looked at the ship, something inside him told him to stay calm. The colony needed someone to keep their heads clear, and if no one else would, then he would try. The ship descended slowly, engines releasing waves of dust that shook the ground. At last, it rested just outside the colony walls. For a moment, no sound came, only the heavy air of waiting. Then, with a sharp hiss, a ramp opened, lowering to the earth. Out of the ship stepped figures in tall silver armor. The armor shone like mirrors, reflecting the light of the dying sun. Their movements were steady, controlled, and powerful. The colonists drew back in fear, whispering among themselves. Some thought to run, others wanted to hide, but none moved forward. Arun took a step. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to walk. He told himself that if these visitors wanted to destroy them, they would not need to talk first. The fact that they had landed near the colony, rather than firing from the sky, meant there was a chance for peace. The armored figures marched forward until one stepped ahead of the rest. She was taller than any human, her helmet smooth and curved with a blue crest running across it. She raised a hand, and her voice came through the air in a strong, clear tone. People of this land. I am Kale, guardian of the Avarice Alliance. We come not as raiders, but as seekers of knowledge. Do not fear us. Her words were translated through a device on her arm, echoing in the air for all to hear. The crowd murmured, unsure whether to trust her. Arun raised his voice. Why have you come here? We are simple settlers. We have little to offer. Kale turned her helmet toward him. Even behind the mask, her attention was sharp. Humans are new among the stars, yet stories of your kind spread far. We wish to understand you. We wish to see what gives your people strength, though your worlds are small. The colonists whispered louder now. Some were afraid, some were angry, and some only wanted the visitors to leave. Arun felt their fear rising. He knew that if no one acted, panic would break out. So he stepped forward again, closer to Kale. He bowed his head slightly, not as a servant but as a sign of respect. My name is Arun. I speak for my people, at least until our governor returns. If you come in peace, we will listen. But you must understand, we are wary of strangers. Kale studied him for a long moment. Then she lowered her hand and nodded. Wary is wise. A people who survive on caution are a people worth knowing. Her words eased some of the tension, though not all. The armored guards behind her remained still, silent as stone. Arun took a breath and spoke again. Then let us talk. If you wish to know us, you must understand our fears as well as our hopes. Kale tilted her head, almost like a curious bird. Then she gave a command in her own tongue, and the guards stepped back. Only she moved forward, standing just a few steps away from Arun. "Tell me, Arun of Haven," she said, her voice calm but steady, "what is it that your kind desires most? What drives humans to fight, to build, to travel so far from the world of their birth?" The question was heavy, and for a moment, Arun could not answer. Around him, the colonists watched in silence. He felt the weight of their eyes, their fear, and their hope pressing on him. He thought of all the answers he could give: safety, survival, food, water, freedom. Yet none of those felt right in that moment. He wanted to ease the fear, to break the tension. So, with a nervous smile, he let a small joke slip from his lips. "You asked what we want," he said lightly. "The answer is simple. You." The crowd gasped softly. Some looked horrified, others confused. Arun himself almost regretted saying it, but the words were out now. He braced himself for anger or insult. But Kale did not react with rage. Instead, she stood still, her helmet turned toward him. A pause filled the air, stretching longer than expected. Then she spoke again, her voice lower but clear. "Then you shall have me." With that, she reached up to her helmet. With a sharp motion, she pressed the release. The helmet hissed, then lifted. For the first time, the colonists saw her face. It was strong, sharp-lined, with eyes that glowed faintly like stars. She removed her helmet fully, holding it at her side. Then she began to unclasp the armor plates on her chest and shoulders. The colonists gasped again, this time in shock. Arun stared in disbelief. His joke had started something he did not understand. The warrior before him was discarding her armor, piece by piece, as if his words had carried a meaning far greater than he intended. The crowd did not know what to think, and neither did Arun. But one thing was certain. Whatever path had begun with his joke, it would change everything for Haven, for Kale, and perhaps for both their peoples. The colony square was silent, the air heavy with dust and surprise. People of Haven stood frozen as Kale, the tall armored warrior, removed one piece of her shining armor after another. The sound of metal plates unlocking echoed in the stillness. Nobody dared to move, nobody dared to speak. Arun could not believe what was happening. He had spoken without thinking, making a nervous joke to break the fear in the air. He never imagined Kale would take him seriously. Yet here she was, removing her armor, her silver plates falling into the dust like the skin of a snake being shed. The colonists looked on with wide eyes. Some whispered in confusion. Some frowned, wondering if this was a trick. Others were simply too shocked to react. Kale stood tall, her body still strong without the armor, her clothing beneath simple and dark. She looked directly at Arun. "You say what your people want is me," she said in her steady voice. "Then I must understand what that means. To know humans, I will no longer hide behind the shell of war. I will stand as you stand, bare to the world." Her words stirred unease in the crowd. One farmer muttered, "This is a trap. No warrior gives up armor so easily." Another whispered, "Maybe she mocks us." But Arun felt something different. He saw no mockery in her eyes, no cruelty. There was only focus, as if she had decided something important and would not turn back. He cleared his throat and raised his voice, speaking not only to Kale but also to his people. "She is not mocking us. She is testing us. She wishes to see if we trust her without her armor. And maybe she wishes to show that she trusts us as well. Kale gave the faintest nod, as though his words touched the truth. The colonists were restless. Mothers pulled children closer. Old men shook their heads. The fear in the air had not left, but it shifted into something else: curiosity. Kale placed her helmet on the ground before her and stepped closer to Arun. The glow of her strange eyes seemed softer without the mask of her armor. "Tell me, Arun," she said, "do your people trust strength alone, or do they see worth in something more?" Arun hesitated. He was only an engineer, not a leader or philosopher. Yet at this moment, he felt all eyes upon him. He had to answer. "We trust strength, yes," he said, "but not only the strength of arms. We trust the strength of hands that build, the strength of voices that guide, the strength of hearts that keep us together. That is what keeps us alive here." Kale listened closely, her eyes sharp, her face unreadable. Then she spoke again. "Then I will learn this strength. I will walk without armor among you, and I will see what humans call courage." Her declaration caused fresh murmurs. The colonists could not understand why an alien warrior would make such a vow. Some were still afraid, but others began to feel a strange respect. Governor Lian, who had been away on patrol when the ship landed, finally returned to the square. She was a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair and a steady gaze. She pushed through the crowd and came to stand beside Arun. "What have you done?" she whispered to him, her voice tense. Arun explained quickly, telling her of Kale's question and his careless answer. Lian frowned, rubbing her forehead. "You made a joke," she said. "And now she is changing her life because of it?" Arun nodded, embarrassed. "It seems so." Lian studied Kale, who now stood calmly, her armor laid out like offerings on the ground. After a moment, Lian turned back to the colonists and raised her voice. "People of Haven, we will not greet our guest with fear. If she wishes to learn of us, then we will show her who we are. But we will also watch with care. Trust is earned, not given freely." Her words calmed the people. They trusted Lian's judgment, and though doubt still lingered, most lowered their voices and returned to their work. The children still stared, their eyes full of wonder. That evening, Kale joined the colonists at their communal fire. The flames danced in the night air, casting shadows on the stone walls of the square. Food was shared: bread, stew, and roasted roots. Kale tasted each dish with curiosity, asking questions about how they were grown and cooked. The colonists watched her closely. She no longer looked like an untouchable figure of power. Without her armor, she seemed more like one of them, still taller, still strange, but less of a distant threat. Arun sat across from her, feeling the weight of responsibility. He had become her guide by accident, but now he felt bound to the role. She asked him questions about human customs, about why people laughed, about why songs were sung. He answered as best he could, though often with a shy smile, for he did not always know the perfect words. At one point, Kale said, "Among my people, we wear armor always, even in our homes. We believe it shields us not only from weapons but from weakness. Yet I see you live with no shell. You trust the open air." Arun replied, "We have no choice. If we lived behind armor always, we would forget how to live. Danger is real, but so is joy, and you cannot feel joy through metal plates." Her glowing eyes studied him carefully. She gave no answer, but the firelight reflected in her gaze like stars on water. Later that night, After the meal ended and the people drifted back to their homes, Arun stood outside his small workshop. He looked up at the alien ship, still parked just beyond the colony walls. Its silent bulk loomed like a mountain of steel, lights flickering across its surface. Kale approached him quietly. Her steps were light, her presence calm. She stopped beside him and looked up at the ship as well. "You joke, yet your words carry weight," she said. "Perhaps your kind does not realize how much power words can hold." Arun sighed softly. "I only meant to ease the fear. I never thought you would take me seriously." Kale's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile but close. "You wished to ease fear. That is strength also." Arun glanced at her, unsure what to say. He felt a strange mix of worry and wonder. His joke had begun something he could not control. Yet as he looked at her standing beside him, no longer an untouchable warrior but a guest seeking truth, he felt that maybe this path was not entirely wrong. The night air was cool, carrying the smell of earth and grain. For the first time since the ship's arrival, the colony was quiet, not with fear but with waiting. Something new had begun in Haven, and none could guess where it would lead. Morning light spread across the valley, painting the fields of Haven in gold. The colony slowly came to life. Farmers walked out to tend to their crops, children carried water, and machines hummed as they warmed to their daily work. Yet the mood of the colony was different from every other day. The people spoke in quiet tones, their eyes drifting again and again to the tall figure walking among them without armor. Kale moved with steady grace, no longer wrapped in her silver plates. She wore only a dark suit of simple fabric, her frame strong and tall. Though she carried no weapon, the colonists still felt the presence of a warrior in her every step. Arun walked beside her. He had barely slept, his mind restless after the strange turn of events. A careless joke had placed him at the center of something much larger than himself. Now he was her guide, the one she trusted to help her understand what it meant to live as a human. As they walked through the fields, some colonists stopped their work to watch. Many still feared her, unsure of her purpose. Some bowed their heads slightly in respect, while others avoided her gaze. Kale took note of every reaction but spoke little. Finally, one of the farmers stepped forward. He was an older man named Rami, his hands rough with years of work. He stood firmly in the path, holding his shovel like a staff. "You speak of learning our ways," Rami said, his voice rough but steady. "But words are easy. If you wish to understand us, then work as we work. Stand in the soil, sweat under the sun, and see how we survive." Kale regarded him for a long moment. Arun worried she might take offense, but instead, she placed her hand over her chest in a gesture of respect. "Then I will do so," she said. "Show me your labor." Rami nodded once and handed her the shovel. The colonists whispered among themselves, watching closely. Kale studied the tool for a moment, then stepped into the field. She drove the shovel into the soil with one swift motion. Her strength was clear, the earth breaking easily beneath her hand. She worked in silence, turning the soil again and again. Sweat soon gathered on her brow, but she did not slow. Hours passed. The sun rose high, burning hot on the valley floor. The colonists expected her to tire, but she continued without pause. Arun stayed nearby, handing her water when needed. Though her body showed no sign of weakness, he noticed something in her eyes. She was not simply working, she was studying. She watched how Rami's hands moved, how the soil broke differently under different pressure, how the rhythm of work matched the rhythm of breath. When the task was finished, Rami took back his shovel. He looked at Kale with new respect. You have strength, warrior, he said. But more than that, you listened. That is good. Kale gave a short bow. Strength without listening is wasted. I see this now. The colonists who had gathered began to murmur with approval. Fear softened into cautious respect. For the first time, they saw her not as a threat but as someone willing to stand beside them. Later that day, Kale joined the women of the colony as they prepared food in the central square. She watched closely as they mixed flour and water, kneaded dough, and placed it into clay ovens. Her large hands struggled with the delicate work, and her first attempt came out uneven, but instead of frowning, she laughed softly, a sound that startled everyone nearby. Arun smiled at the sight. The colonists began to relax further, their own laughter rising. The air of fear was slowly being replaced by curiosity and even amusement. As evening approached, Arun and Kale walked to the edge of the colony, where a clear stream flowed between rocks. Kale knelt by the water and dipped her hands into it, studying the way it moved. Among my people, she said, we are taught never to remove our armor, not even to drink. To do so is to invite danger. Yet here, I feel no weakness. Arun sat on a nearby rock, watching the current. That is because you are not alone. Here, we depend on each other. No one stands behind walls forever, because we cannot survive that way. To live here is to trust. Kale looked at him, her glowing eyes steady. Trust, she repeated, as if tasting the word. At that moment, a shout echoed from the colony walls. A young boy came running, his face pale with fear. One of the machines has failed, he cried. The water pump is broken. We cannot draw water for the crops. Arun stood at once. The pump was vital. Without it, the crops would wither, and the colony would starve. He hurried back with the boy, Kale following at his side. When they reached the pump, a crowd had gathered. The machine stood silent, its gears locked, its pipes hissing with steam. Arun dropped to his knees and began pulling off panels. His hands moved quickly, but his face grew tense. The main shaft is cracked, he muttered. I can repair it, but it will take hours. If the crops go without water too long, the soil will dry. Kale stepped forward. Show me what to do. Arun hesitated. This is not like the shovel. These machines are complex. Kale's voice was calm. You said trust is part of survival. Trust me, Arun. Teach me. Her words struck him. Slowly, he nodded. He explained each step, showing her how to hold the tools, how to adjust the gears, how to replace the cracked shaft with spare parts from his workshop. Her hands were large, but she followed his instructions with surprising precision. Together, they worked until the sun dipped low, their arms covered in grease and sweat. At last, the pump roared back to life, water rushing through the pipes once more. The crowd cheered. Children clapped their hands, and farmers raised their voices in joy. Kale stood tall beside Arun, her face calm but her eyes glowing brighter than before. You see, Arun said, breathing hard but smiling, strength is not enough. To survive here, you must build, repair, and endure. You must trust others to stand with you. Kale looked at him and gave a slow nod. Then I will stand with you. From this day, I will learn not only the strength of war but the strength of hands that build. The colonists heard her words and felt a shift in their hearts. What began as fear was now something different. Kale had tested their trust, and they had tested hers. In that moment, a fragile bond was formed. As night fell over Haven, fires lit the square once more. This time, the people did not watch her with fear but with a growing sense of pride. Arun sat among them, tired but filled with a strange hope. He realized that the joke he had spoken had opened a path he never expected. Kale, the armored guardian, was no longer only a visitor. She was becoming part of Haven, and with every passing day, the colony was beginning to change. Days passed in Haven, and Kale walked among the colonists as though she had always been part of them. Her tall frame still marked her as alien, her glowing eyes reminded all that she came from a distant world, but she no longer carried the weight of untouchable power. Without her armor, she shared in the daily life of the colony. Each morning, she rose before sunrise and joined the farmers in the fields. She learned how to carry water, how to harvest grain, and how to mend broken fences. At first, her movements were stiff, more suited for battle than for gentle work, but over time her hands grew steady. She laughed when the younger children showed her how to scare away birds with clappers made from sticks and metal scraps. Arun often walked beside her, answering her endless stream of questions. "Why do you plant here instead of there?" she would ask, pointing to the soil. "Or why do you sing while you work?" Arun explained that the songs kept spirits high during hard labor, that they carried rhythm and gave strength to tired arms. One afternoon, Kale surprised the farmers by joining in one of their songs. Her voice was deeper than theirs, rough and unfamiliar, but she carried the tune with care. The colonists paused in their work, listening. Then, with smiles, they continued singing, and the fields echoed with voices both human and alien working as one. In the evenings, Kale visited the workshops. Arun showed her how machines powered the colony, how each part had a purpose, and how failure in one piece could bring trouble to all. She listened closely, her sharp mind memorizing every detail. When sparks flew from a grinder or oil stained her hands, she did not flinch. Instead, she asked more questions, eager to understand. But what struck Arun most was her fascination with the smallest things. One night, he caught her staring at a lantern flame, her eyes fixed on the flickering light. "In my people's homes," she said, "light comes from crystals that burn for centuries. It never changes, never shifts. This flame dances. It is alive. It feels like it breathes." Arun smiled, realizing that things humans took for granted could seem like wonders to her. Kale also began to spend time with the children. At first, the little ones hid behind their parents, afraid of her tall figure and glowing eyes. But soon curiosity overcame fear. They followed her as she walked through the square, tugging at her arms, asking questions. "Why are you so tall?" one child asked. "Because my people grew strong in a world with heavy skies," she replied. "Can you lift that cart?" another asked, pointing to a heavy wooden cart filled with grain. Kale nodded and lifted it with ease, placing it back down with care. The children cheered, their laughter ringing through the air. By the end of the week, they no longer ran from her but instead ran to her, eager to hear stories of stars and distant worlds. She spoke of planets covered in crystal seas, of moons where storms never ended, of towers that reached into the clouds. The children listened wide-eyed, their imaginations soaring beyond the Valley of Haven. Arun watched all this with mixed feelings. He saw how the people of Haven began to accept Kale, how laughter returned to the square, how even the most doubtful colonists spoke of her with growing respect. Yet he also felt the weight of what her presence meant. She was no ordinary visitor. She came from a powerful alliance, a people who had shaped the stars long before humans left Earth. What did it mean that she walked among them so freely, casting aside her armor and her rank? One evening, as the sky turned orange with sunset, Arun found Kale sitting on a low wall near the colony's edge. She looked out across the fields, the wind pulling at her dark clothing. "You have changed much in only a few days," Arun said, taking a seat beside her. Kale turned her gaze toward him. "I have not changed. I have only removed the shell that hid me. What you see now is what I always was." Arun thought about her words. "Still, it is not easy for my people to trust. We have known war before. We have seen ships in the sky bring only ruin." Kale's voice grew quieter. "You are right to be cautious. My kind has fought many wars. We have known the weight of armor so long that some of us forget there is life outside of it. But when you spoke that word, when you said you wanted me, I understood something. To learn of humans, I must not stand above them. I must stand with them." Arun studied her face. There was no arrogance there, no mockery. Only a calm certainty that made him both nervous and hopeful. That night, the colony gathered for a small celebration. A new well had been finished, giving Haven more water than before, and Governor Lian called for music and food. Torches were lit around the square, and people sang songs of harvest and work. Children danced in circles, their laughter rising into the night. Kale sat among them, accepting a bowl of stew from one of the cooks. She tasted it carefully, then nodded in approval. "This is good," she said simply, and the cook beamed with pride. As the music grew, a group of colonists began to dance. They clapped their hands, stamped their feet, and spun in time with the rhythm. To everyone's surprise, Kale stood and joined them. At first, her steps were stiff and awkward, but she watched the others closely and copied their movements. Soon, she found the rhythm, her tall figure moving with surprising grace. The square filled with cheers, and even the governor laughed at the sight of the alien warrior dancing among her people. Arun felt something stir inside him. The colony had been filled with fear when the ship arrived. Now it was filled with joy, and Kale was at the center of it. He realized that her presence was not just teaching her about humanity. It was teaching the colonists about themselves, their strength, their spirit, their ability to welcome even one who had once been feared. As the night grew late and the fires burned low, Kale sat once more beside Arun. The stars glittered above them, and the great alien ship still rested just beyond the colony walls, silent and watching. "Your people have given me food, labor, and song," she said. "I feel something here I have never felt in the great halls of my own kind. I feel belonging." Arun nodded slowly. "Belonging is what keeps us alive. It is what makes us human." Kale lifted her gaze to the stars. "Then perhaps it is what will make me more than I was." Arun felt a chill at her words. He did not yet know what they meant, but he sensed that the bond forming between Kale and Haven was more than chance. It was the beginning of something larger, something that could shape not only their small colony but the fate of both their peoples. The days in Haven grew calmer as Kale became part of the colony's life. Fear turned into respect, and respect turned into something close to friendship. Yet peace has a way of drawing shadows, and the people of Haven did not see the danger moving closer to their valley. One night, as the moonlight touched the fields, Arun sat outside his workshop. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Kale approaching. Her sharp eyes were fixed on the dark hills beyond the colony. "You sense something?" Arun asked. Kale nodded. "The air is different. Too still. I have lived through many campaigns, and silence like this often comes before trouble." Arun frowned. You think your people followed you? No, Kale said softly. But others may have. My kind is not the only one who walks the stars. There are those who see new worlds not as homes but as spoils. If they learned of your colony, they would not hesitate to strike. Her words chilled Arun. He wanted to believe Haven was too small to draw attention, but Kale's tone left little room for comfort. The next morning, her fears were confirmed. A group of hunters returned from the hills with grim faces. They had seen strange tracks, too large for local animals, pressed deep into the soil. One of them swore he had seen a glimmer of metal among the rocks, moving quickly out of sight. The news spread quickly. Fear returned to the colony, undoing much of the calm they had built. Some argued that Kale had brought danger to them. Others wanted to prepare weapons and walls. Governor Lian called a council that evening, with Kale and Arun standing at the center. These tracks are not of this world, Kale told them firmly. A rival faction has followed me here. They are called the Dravari. They believe only in conquest, and they see humans as weak prey. They will test your defenses before they strike in full. The colonists shifted uneasily. Their weapons were few, their walls thin. Haven had been built for farming, not war. Lian's face was stern. Then we must prepare. We will not abandon our home. Kale placed her hand on her chest. I swore to stand with you without armor. I will honor that vow. But understand this, if the Dravari come, they will not show mercy. You must be ready to fight not with strength alone but with every clever thought and every hand that can hold a tool. The council ended with heavy hearts. Families began gathering supplies, repairing old defenses, and sharpening blades that had not seen use in years. Children carried water to the walls, while elders crafted traps from spare parts. The colony became a hive of preparation. Arun worked day and night in his workshop, repairing drones, welding broken rifles, and creating alarms from scraps of metal and wire. Kale stayed at his side, her hands steady, her eyes sharp. She learned quickly, building tools and weapons as though she had always known them. But there was tension within her. One evening, as they worked on a defense drone, Arun noticed her gaze drifting to the alien ship that still rested near the valley. Her armor remained inside it, untouched since the day she removed it. You are thinking about it, Arun said quietly. Kale's jaw tightened. Yes. My armor would make me strong again. With it, I could stand against the Dravari without fear. Then why not wear it? Arun asked. Kale was silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. Because if I put it on, I will no longer be one of you. I will return to the warrior who stands above others, not beside them. I made a vow to walk as you walk, to learn your strength. If I break that vow now, then all I have done here means nothing. Arun placed a hand on the drone and nodded. Then you will fight as we fight. With trust, not with armor. Kale met his gaze, and for the first time, she looked almost uncertain. But she said nothing more, and they returned to their work. 2 days later, the threat revealed itself. Scouts on the hills spotted figures moving through the rocks, dark shapes with glinting metal weapons. The Dravari had come. Their ships were smaller than Kale's but built for war, sleek and sharp like blades. They landed under cover of night, their engines low and silent. The alarm rang through Haven. Colonists rushed to their posts, holding rifles, bows, and farming tools. Kale stood at the front, her tall figure clear against the torchlight. Arun stood beside her, gripping a simple rifle he had repaired. From the shadows of the hills, the Dravari emerged. They were tall like Kale but broader, their skin dark and rough. Their armor was jagged, their weapons glowing with cruel light. The leader stepped forward, his voice carrying across the valley. "Humans," he called, "your world is weak, your people small. Leave your homes, and we will spare your lives. Resist, and you will be crushed." The colonists murmured in fear, but Kale raised her voice in reply. "These people are not weak," she said firmly. "They will not bow to you. They will stand, and I will stand with them." The Dravari leader laughed, the sound harsh and cold. "You cast aside your armor, Kale of Avarice. You are no warrior now, only prey. We will take this world, and your death will be the first among them." Kale's eyes burned with light, but she did not move. Instead, she turned to the colonists. "Do not fear their words. They know only how to frighten. But fear is nothing when hearts are united." The Dravari did not attack that night. They withdrew into the hills, waiting, testing. But their presence weighed heavy on Haven. The colonists knew the attack would come soon. That evening, Kale walked through the colony, speaking to the people one by one. She helped a farmer set traps in the fields. She carried stones to the walls. She spoke softly to children, telling them to stay strong. Everywhere she went, she gave courage by her presence. Arun watched her and felt the same strength rise in his own chest. They were not ready for war, not in the way the Dravari were, but they had something else. They had unity, and they had Kale. As the stars filled the sky, Kale stood once more at the colony's edge, gazing into the dark hills. Her vow weighed heavy, but she did not waver. She had given her word, and she would keep it. In the shadows beyond, the Dravari prepared their weapons. The storm was coming, and Haven would soon be tested in fire. Dawn broke over Haven, painting the valley in pale light. The wind carried a strange tension that set the colonists on edge. Birds hid in the trees, and even the livestock remained silent. Arun moved through the village, checking every weapon, every trap, every machine. His hands shook with fatigue, but his mind was alert. The Dravari were coming, and there would be no second chance. Kale stood at the center of the colony, her dark clothing catching the early sunlight. Her glowing eyes swept over the fields, the walls, and the villagers. She did not wear her armor. Her vow remained. She would stand as one of them, shoulder to shoulder, without the protection she once relied on. "Remember," she said, her voice clear and strong, "we are not a village of farmers alone. We are a people who fight together. Trust your neighbors, trust your hands, and trust your hearts. That is how we survive." The colonists nodded. Mothers carried children to safe places, farmers gripped tools, and the elders moved to positions where they could help the defense. Even the children were taught small tasks, like keeping watch or alerting the adults. Every person had a role. In the distance, the Dravari appeared. Shadows moved across the hills, and sleek ships descended to the valley floor. Their jagged armor reflected the sun, their weapons glowing faintly with deadly energy. The valley seemed smaller under the presence of so many enemies. Arun tightened his grip on a rifle. Kale placed her hand on his shoulder. "Stay calm," she said. "Your fear will only give them power. Remember what we have built together." The Dravari advanced. Their leader stepped forward, raising a weapon that glowed like a blade of fire. "Prepare to die, humans," he called. "Your world will fall before us." Kale moved first. She ran toward the attackers, not as a warrior in armor but as a tall human figure among others. The colonists followed. Fear was strong, but it was overshadowed by determination. Arun worked alongside her, his rifle raised. He fired at the advancing Dravari, aiming to slow their movement. Kale carried heavy stones and debris, hurling them with precision to knock the enemies off balance. The colonists used clever traps they had built during the previous days. Nets dropped from trees, pits hidden with branches, and small machines designed to trip or distract. The battle was chaotic, and yet there was a rhythm. Arun realized that this was not just a fight of weapons. It was a fight of minds, of strategy, and trust. Each colonist knew where the others were, and together, they became a web of movement that the Dravari could not easily break. Kale dodged a swing from one of the enemy's energy blades, catching the attacker's arm and throwing him into a pile of hay. Her strength was immense, but she relied on clever movement as much as raw power. She guided others, shouting instructions, helping the colonists see where the enemy was weak. Hours passed. The sun rose high, burning the valley floor. Sweat poured from every fighter, both human and Dravari. Dust and smoke clouded the air. Yet Kale never faltered. She moved through the chaos, her eyes always watching, her hands always ready to lift, push, or strike as needed. Arun noticed something remarkable. The colonists were not just surviving. They were adapting. When a trap failed, they quickly adjusted. When a weapon jammed, they improvised. The Dravari expected easy prey, but Haven's people had no intention of yielding. The Dravari leader grew frustrated. He raised his weapon high, preparing to strike Kale directly. Arun shouted a warning. Kale ducked and rolled, catching a fallen plank to block the strike. She stood again, eyes glowing with determination, and faced the leader. "You cannot take this valley," she shouted. "You cannot take these people." The leader advanced, but Kale was faster. She dodged and used his momentum against him, sending him sprawling. The colonists seized the opportunity, surrounding the Dravari and using their traps and tools to push them back. Little by little, the invaders began to falter. The machines and weapons of the colonists were crude compared to the Dravari's technology, but clever thinking and courage made up for what they lacked. Every time a Dravari stumbled, Kale was there to guide a colonist's strike. Every time a trap was sprung, she helped ensure it worked efficiently. By mid-afternoon, the Dravari were retreating. Their ships rose, glowing engines flaring, but the colonists had won ground. The enemy had underestimated the humans and their alien ally who had chosen to fight without armor. Kale stood at the edge of the battlefield, breathing heavily, sweat and dust covering her face. Arun ran to her side. "You were incredible," he said. "I have never seen anything like it." Kale shook her head slightly. "You were incredible. The strength of these people is what won the day. I only guided them." The colonists emerged from hiding, their eyes shining with relief. Families hugged, children laughed, and elders smiled through exhaustion. Though tired and bruised, the people of Haven had defended their home. They had survived against a far stronger enemy. Governor Lian approached, her face tired but proud. "Kale," she said. "You honored your vow. You stood with us as one of our own. The colony owes you more than words can express." Kale bowed slightly. "I am not the hero. These people are. You are brave beyond measure. Your courage is what matters. My place is only beside you." The Dravari ships retreated over the horizon, leaving the valley silent. The colonists cheered, not only for survival but for the proof that humans, with courage and cleverness, could overcome even the greatest threats. As night fell, Arun and Kale walked through the fields. Smoke still rose from small fires used to destroy enemy machines. The air smelled of burnt wood and earth, but it was a smell of victory, not defeat. Kale looked at the horizon, where the last light of day faded. "I have seen many battles in my life," she said softly, "but I have never seen courage like this. Your people are more than survivors. You are a force." Arun smiled, tired but filled with pride. "That is what it means to be human. Strength alone cannot protect us. Heart and mind together make us strong." Kale nodded. "Then I have much to learn still, but I will continue. I will walk beside you, learn from you, and protect this place as you do. Together, we can face anything." The valley grew quiet under the night sky, stars reflecting in Kale's glowing eyes. Haven had been tested by fire, but it had endured. And standing beside them, without armor, Kale had become more than a warrior. She had become a part of their world, a symbol of what humans and their allies could achieve when they stood together. The sun rose over Haven, spreading warm light across the valley. After the battle with the Dravari, the colony was quiet but alive. People moved among the fields and homes, tending to crops, repairing buildings, and helping one another. Though fatigue marked their faces, their spirits were strong. They had survived an enemy that seemed unbeatable, and they had done it together. Kale walked through the square, now covered with makeshift defenses and repairs from the previous days. Her dark clothing was dusty, her hands still marked by sweat and grime, but her glowing eyes shone with pride. She no longer seemed like an outsider. She was part of the colony, a living symbol of strength and trust. Arun followed her, carrying tools for repairs. His heart felt light, for the fear that had gripped Haven had lifted. The people were rebuilding, not out of fear, but out of hope. Kale had helped them see that courage was not just about fighting. It was about standing together, learning from each other, and trusting in the strength of the community. Governor Lian stood at the center of the square, speaking to the people. "Today we survived because we trusted one another. We survived because we faced our fears and worked together. Remember this. This is who we are." The colonists nodded. Children ran to their parents, carrying small tools and baskets of food. Farmers checked their crops, ensuring the soil was not damaged by the battle. Even the elders, usually slow in movement, walked among the people, offering guidance and reassurance. Kale approached Lian and bowed slightly. "Your people are remarkable," she said. "I have witnessed their courage, their skill, and their heart. I am honored to stand among them." Lian placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have honored us as well. You have chosen to walk with us without armor, without power, and you have proven that trust and loyalty matter more than strength alone." Arun watched the exchange and felt a sense of peace. The colony had faced danger and survived. Kale's choice to remain without armor had not been foolish. It had been wise. She had inspired the people to find strength within themselves, to work as one, and to overcome a threat far greater than they had imagined. As the day passed, Kale joined the children once again. She taught them simple exercises to strengthen their arms and legs, and she shared stories of distant planets and stars. The children listened in awe, their eyes wide, their imaginations growing with each word. Some tried to mimic her movements, and she laughed softly, encouraging them with gentle guidance. In the fields, Kale helped repair the water system damaged during the battle. She worked alongside Arun and other farmers, carefully fitting pipes and adjusting valves. Though her hands were large and strong, she moved with precision, following the instructions of those who had built the system. The colonists watched her work, learning from her as she had learned from them. That evening, the colony gathered for a celebration. Fires were lit in the square, and tables were filled with food. Bread, vegetables, roasted grains, and fresh water were shared among everyone. Music rose from simple instruments, drums, flutes, and string tools. The air was filled with laughter and song. Kale stood beside Arun, observing the scene. She had never experienced anything like it in her life among the stars. There had been celebrations before, but none that carried the same warmth, the same sense of belonging. Here, she was not a soldier or a visitor. She was a friend, a teacher, and a protector. Arun leaned closer. "You could have left after the battle," he said quietly. "You could have returned to your world, to your people, and worn your armor again. Why did you stay?" Kale looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "Because I have learned that life is not only about power. It is about connection. Your people trusted me, even when it was difficult. I chose to trust them in return. That is why I stay." The colonists noticed her words and felt a warmth that had not been there before. Kale had come from a distant world, and yet she had chosen to share their lives, their struggles, and their joys. She had proven that strength could exist without dominance, that courage could exist without fear. As night deepened, the stars stretched across the sky. The great alien ship still rested beyond the colony walls, silent and still, but it no longer seemed threatening. It was a reminder of the journey Kale had taken to reach them, but the people of Haven no longer feared it. It was part of the story of their survival, a symbol of the connection between worlds. Kale walked to the edge of the square, watching the stars and thinking of her own people. She had learned much in a short time, but there was still more to understand. She turned to Arun, who had been by her side throughout the trials. "Arun," she said, "I have seen the courage of humans. I have felt the strength of hearts united. I wish to carry this lesson to others, to show that life is worth protecting, not just conquering." Arun nodded. "Then stay here as long as you wish. Haven is your home now, as it is ours. Together, we can face whatever comes next." Kale smiled softly. It was a rare expression for her, one that showed warmth and trust. "Then I will stay. I will protect this valley, this home, and its people. I will learn more of what it means to live among humans. And I will teach others that strength alone is not enough." The colony celebrated long into the night. Fires burned, music played, and children ran through the square, their laughter echoing against the hills. The people of Haven knew that the world beyond their valley was vast and dangerous, but they also knew they had faced a great challenge and survived. They had learned that courage, trust, and unity were more powerful than any weapon. Kale stood among them, no armor, no weapons, only her presence and her strength of heart. She had come as a warrior from a distant alliance, but she remained because she had found something greater, belonging. As the first light of the new day touched the valley, Arun looked at Kale and the people around them. Haven was alive, stronger than before, and ready to face the future. The Dravari had tested them, but they had endured. And in the center of it all, Kale had shown that even one being could make a difference by choosing trust, courage, and friendship over fear and power. The Valley of Haven breathed in the new day. The fields shimmered with dew, the fires burned low, and the people moved with purpose. Kale and Arun stood together, watching the horizon. They did not know what challenges the future would bring, but they knew one truth: when hearts and hands work together, No threat could break them. Haven had survived. And with Kale standing beside them, it would thrive.